Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here on time for the last day of the December board meeting. Hello to Obichuku and Amajit as well, and thank you very much for being here for the fifth day at this unsocial hours for you. So we are heading to the last part of our meeting in December. We will this morning look at the work that the FCG project team has done, following up on the comments of this board on the documents, and get an agreement from the board on those documents. And also the project team will debrief and can, I suppose, about the meeting that they had with IESBA on FCG. And then we will look at the changes and adjustments made on the CIV's report. Linda, I don't know, she's not here yet, but she will be here. So the idea this morning is that we agree on these revised documents to allow the work to move forward. And then we'll have a closing session, some a farewell moment, followed by our executive session. On FCG, thank you very much, Jeff, Laura, Joanne, for the work that you have done since we discussed these documents earlier this week. And I'll quickly ask Jeff to drive us through the changes made so that you can agree. Sorry?
Oh, just before we go to FCG.
Okay, go ahead.
I just want to ask board members if they would like more time to read the changes to the minutes. There have been a few editorial changes with the this September board minutes, the public session. These were circulated to you yesterday. Does any board member need more time to review those changes? Otherwise, we can ask the board to approve the minutes. There were no changes to the October ones. Is the board comfortable with the minutes? Yep. Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you, Ken. And Jeff, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Gabriella, and good morning, everyone, on this last day of our December IESBA meeting. This first session, as Gabriella has mentioned, is to discuss two things: the turnaround versions of the three papers that we circulated a few days ago, and then get your acceptance. And then we will give you an update on the IESBA FCG session that we had on Wednesday. Firstly, just want to thank the board again for all your feedback and input, particularly on Monday and Tuesday as we walk through those four papers. The three, the contextual piece, the overarching piece, the viewpoints, and of course the ISQM1 linkages paper. And also thank you for your feedback on the outreach plan, and also for your thoughts on the options that were presented on Monday and Tuesday. So the first thing we want to cover with you are the three papers, as I've mentioned. Of course, they will form the main part of the briefing notes that we will be circulating and sending out to our stakeholders as we move into the stakeholder engagement phase in Q1 and Q2 next year. Again, just to remind the board that particularly the viewpoints, they are not written like standards because they're not standards, and they are tools that we will use as part of our stakeholder engagement. Just a reminder to the board, refreshment as opposed on Monday as we discussed these papers. The board was generally supportive, and we have some very good discussions and in terms of how we could refine these papers. So on Tuesday, the project team had the opportunity to discuss all the comments with the board advisors, and that's how we kind of got to the changes that we made that we've circulated a few days ago. So what we'll do is Laura will walk through the contextual piece, the overarching piece with you, and Joanne will then walk through the X sets of viewpoints with you. And then we'll ask, once we've settled on these papers, we're happy with it, then we'll ask Gabriella to ask the board to formally accept these papers. So thank you, Laura.
Okay, thank you. So like Jeff mentioned, Joanne and I are going to walk you through these, the changes that we made to these documents, and we're going to start with the contextual paper, which is already on the screen. We're going to tell you how the comments have been addressed by the project team and the board advisors, as well as other changes that we have made as a result of that discussion as well. So to start with, let me mention or remind you of that discussion that we had about the root causes of the project and the fact that there were some ethical failures motivating this project. The project team and the board advisors agreed not to propose any change to this as a result of this comment, because we found that paragraph 2 already addresses that idea of fact finding. It mentions some ethical failures, and again, the root cause analysis that this board does and it has done for this project is very much tied to the fact finding and the outreach and the conversations with the stakeholders, and so that is already mentioned there. So moving on to the next change. We have here this sentence in paragraph 6 that we're proposing to delete in response to a board comment that they said that there's something already in the code about firm culture. So maybe let's not mention that there is no global baseline. And that's the reason why we propose to delete the sentence. And then the next change, I'm not going to mention editorial changes like the one in paragraph 10. So the next relevant change is in paragraph 13. And again, this is more of a clarification about the viewpoints being tools for outreach. And then in paragraph 15, in 15A, we deleted the word usefulness, also in response to some board comments. And here to show that IESBA's conviction that the viewpoints are useful, so we won't be debating that with stakeholders. At the end of letter A, we also added a reference at the end to highlight the importance of contextualizing this within firms' practices and experiences. And then a new paragraph 15C, kind of a new catch-all reference in terms of what we will be also talking to stakeholders, any other matters to consider. So then moving to paragraph 18, we deleted the word actionable, also in response to a comment from the board that this word might be misconstrued, and there was, as a result, we just reorganized the whole paragraph. Although it seems there's a lot of red there, but it's basically just moving the content of the bullets up. So then in paragraph 20, we deleted just on the first bullet a small change, but might be just to explain. So we deleted provision of from the title of independent input because we got an offline comment saying that this would be all the viewpoints are written from the firm's perspective, and provision of gives the impression that is from an external, an outsider's perspective. And this was a change that we made here also to align to the changes that we made in the viewpoints. And then in the same paragraph 20, second bullet on the use, we got some comments during the board session on the use of certain terms. Some of them are defined in the code, some of them aren't. And this particularly to service lines and network firms. So regarding the service lines, the project team and the board advisors agreed not to make any change or not to propose any change here because it's generally an understood concept. And also because these papers exist outside the code, they don't necessarily have to adhere to the drafting conventions and the glossary. They're tools for outreach. So we believe that it's not essential to add any explanation or definition regarding that term. And regarding the comment on the network firms and how confusing that might be, we're just proposing to delete that second sentence in the second bullet, because it's not essential, and if it's confusing, then it's not necessary to be there. And then finally, last section on the linkages with ISQM, we just changed the heading of this section to align with the title of the paper itself. And as a result, we deleted one of the sentences at the end of paragraph 22, because we're talking about viewpoints, not the framework anymore. And then still on paragraph 22, we added that sentence in the middle of the paragraph to respond to a comment from the board saying that it would be important to state here that the comparison made in that paper on ISQM1 is not a like-for-like comparison. And then finally, we had some comments to state, how the viewpoints should be consumed, what is IESBA's intent with the viewpoints, that they should be seen as a tool for outreach. We completely acknowledge those comments and agree. We propose that is addressed at the briefing note, which will preface all of these documents. And so it will be one of the first things that stakeholders see and read whenever they get the package. So I will pause here for comments on the contextual paper.
Thank you very much, Laura. Comments to these changes? Well, I have one myself. Paragraph 6, I think, where you decided to delete the sentence that says that there is currently no global baseline for firm culture and governance. I'm not sure that, I think this is an important idea. Of course, you said, Laura, there is already something in the code, but what's in the code, it's not a global baseline for firm culture and governance. And I have been even using that argument together with many others to explain to stakeholders why this is necessary, because this is missing. So I'm not sure why it was decided to delete. It was just because there is something already in the code. If it's the case, I think that we might add besides or something which is already in the code, something like that. There is no global baseline, because I think that it helps explaining why we are doing this project. But maybe you have some reasons that I haven't fully captured.
Thank you, Gabrielle, for that question and comment. I think we took it out on the basis that we felt that in addition to the comment that we received, and we're looking at paragraph 6, we felt that the first sentence perhaps is sufficient to address and highlight that providing a global and consistent point of reference for firm culture and governance. So we thought that first sentence was already sufficient, but happy to. That's a comment initially from Amajit, who thought that like from the project team's perspective, other than what's already in the code, those sort of few paragraphs and as application material, we're not aware if there are any global baseline, particularly just on firm culture or accounting firm culture and governance. But we felt that perhaps the first sentence is already covered that point, and we don't need to add. But sorry, Ken.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Amajit, please.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everyone. So I had made this point, and so my point was that this could be a strong statement to keep, that there is absolutely no global baseline today. We could perhaps highlight there are gaps which this project is intending to fill, because you have ISQM, you have certain parts of the code which could be applicable in some situations and so on. So instead of making an absolute statement, could we talk more in terms of the gaps? That was my intention where I was coming from.
Yeah, thank you, Amajit. Well, I acknowledge that the first sentence somehow in a much more subtle way says the same. Now, ISQM1 is certainly not that allows the firms to assess their culture and governance across all the service lines. And this part of the sentence, I think it's important because not only addresses the fact that there is no global baseline, but also the fact that there is nothing for the firms across all service lines. Now, I'm not making, I mean, if the board prefers to remove, I can live with that. But I was just thinking that this is as you said, Amajit, a strong statement which can be helpful sometimes. But well.
Can I make one suggestion, perhaps? First of all, we would say there's a gap in ISQM1, and we are filling the gap. So we're mindful of that. Perhaps if we keep the sentence, but perhaps revise it slightly, is after the first sentence, we'll say this framework establishes a holistic global ethics baseline with
Shana, please.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you get the sentence back in and then say there's no currently no comprehensive global ethics baseline. So that way it addresses Amajit's point.
Yeah, that would work, I think, Chana. That's a good idea.
So there's currently no comprehensive global ethics baseline.
Okay, thank you. I think that works.
Yeah.
Obichukwu, please.
Thank you, Chair. I have a minor comment on number 21, the heading, the linkages between IESBA viewpoints. So I was thinking that it would be good to add IESBA's FCG viewpoints instead of removing FCG totally from the sentence. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Obichukwu. Amajit?
Yeah, just a minor point on another deletion which we are doing now, that we are saying it is not, we are removing the word actionable, which is fine, but just do a consistency check, because I somehow remember reading this word in many places, so we should be consistent through the document.
Okay, thank you very much. Ken?
Just on the concept of actionable, I just want maybe to speak to the concept of principles, because ultimately the board is intending to head towards a framework of principles, and the principles in the code are actionable. They are not simply bland sayings that people can just kind of read and forget about them. They're intended to drive behavior, right? Even the fundamental principles are intended to be actionable. You're intended to calibrate your behavior based on what the principles are saying. You're going to have to act with integrity, and that means when you are in a situation where you're going to have to make a judgment as to which action you're going to take, which decisions you're going to make, that principle will drive your consideration, your mindset, and therefore will drive your action. So all the principles are intended to be actionable, because the code is a code for professional accountants to understand what is the expected behavior, what is expected mindset, and importantly, what ultimately is their role in the broader public interest. So in and of itself, the word is not not a bad word, to put it as simply as possible. And whilst the viewpoints are do not constitute the framework, directionally, that's where we're going. They're intended to help the board on the journey towards the development of the framework, and ultimately come up with a framework of principles, and those principles will be intended to be actionable. So I wouldn't want to lose the thoughts, in other words, about there being something that's going to influence the behaviors.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Nancy, please.
Can I, I agree with you that that's where we're heading, that if we're doing something that isn't actionable, there's no point to it, right? So totally agree with that. I think though, that as used here, it may be a bit of a provocative term in the sense that we're using this as a tool to have these discussions. And I think using this term right now might imply that there is action expected today. And so while I absolutely 100% agree with your comments, I think leaving it out right now might avoid some tension or reaction without a conversation. And I think we can bring that concept that you raised in conversations where it will be better understood, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Nancy. Amajit, please.
Just another point on this para 18. The subsequent phrase after high level and therefore do not include practical examples or specify any processes. I'm wondering whether you need to keep that also. You just say viewpoints are intended to be high level and just stop with that. Because it should not, unwittingly give an impression that there is lack of practicality in some sense, and that is why we are not giving the examples. I mean, it doesn't really add any value. Just leave it at that. That will also do.
Thank you, Amajit.
Thank you, Amajit. Thank you, Nancy and Ken, on actionable. In terms of the other suggestion from Amajit, I think we included in there just to give a sense that yes, high level itself does imply that there's no practical example. But I think when we wrote this, we try to specifically call it out to highlight that it's not about the examples going to come or the practical examples of those sort of things going to come or scenarios. It's going to come as the supporting material, and also want to demonstrate there's no. I guess we just want to call it out to make it very clear that this is a high-level document. It's the second part of that sentence, but we don't. Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, I would be comfortable with dropping it.
Okay.
Well, first of all, it's actually not factual because we do have one or two viewpoints that mention practical examples. I mean, independent input is one situation or one.
Well,
one
practical
element.
examples in the sense of we have some examples.
We do have it. So it's, I think people will say, well, this is not factual. So I would just drop it because we don't need to over-explain the viewpoints or over-justify
Sure.
what is it that they are intended to do. If the body's comfortable, at least.
Okay, so everyone comfortable? Okay, so Laura, please.
Okay, thank you. So just give me a second while I pull the overarching paper now. Okay, again, and going through the changes proposed and the comments made. So again, the same change on the deleting provision of from the title of independent inputs. And then the first change that I would like to mention is here in paragraph 4. The first change that we have at the top of paragraph 4, this was in response to a board comment to avoid the perception that the viewpoints are the framework, which they are not. And so we definitely want to avoid that perception, and therefore the change that is proposed there. The second change in paragraph 4, so at the end of paragraph 4, this was also in response to a board comment who suggested to weave in the idea of togetherness in building an ethical firm culture. Then in paragraph 5, the bullet on oversight and governance, we deleted internal, that word internal there, because oversight and governance mechanisms do promote internal and external transparency. So just it would not be relevant to just mention internal transparency. Then in paragraph 6, these changes in the bullet on independent input, they are just meant to align with the changes with the language that we use and propose to use now in the viewpoints. And so when we get there, we can talk a little bit more about them. And the same thing for the other changes in the other bullets in this paragraph. It's just to align language with what we have in the viewpoints. And then in paragraph 8, we made this change in response to a board comment. That the comment was about the example between in parentheses, and saying that, you know, this might still be relevant, especially if the sole practitioner has staff. So we made that change in paragraph 8 to in response to that comment, and to say that, you know, this element is still relevant in case of sole practitioners with no staff. And then just to finish, there was this, if you recall, this discussion around the prioritization of ethics above all considerations, etc. The project team and the board advisors proposed no change in this paper, but we proposed some changes in response to this discussion in the viewpoints. So when we get to ethical leadership, we can see the proposals there. And again, I would pause for comments.
Thank you, Laura. Comments? Is everyone comfortable with these changes? Okay, so thank you very much.
And
Obichukwu, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. So I still want to talk on number 8. I still believe that I feel that a sole practitioner still needs that culture, even if he has no staff. He still needs that culture, because if the open discussion and challenge is a culture that doesn't only you don't only carry it out or see within your internal relationship in your firm. That culture also helps you when you're going out to do a work for a client. So it helps you with your skepticism as well, as in when they are providing you with documents or information. Somebody that has that culture of open discussion and challenge, you can actually go ahead to talk with the staff and let him know why so and so is important. That's an open discussion. The staff might not see this as wrong. What you're trying to do is actually wrong. But if a sole proprietor has that culture, you'll be able to speak to the person. See, this is how it should be done, and this is what we need. And sometimes you see the staff will reason with you and go and get the right things done. So I still believe that even if you have no staff, that culture of open discussion and challenge is a very important culture that one has to, because your culture reflects not only within your family, even when you go outside, or even when you travel internationally, your culture is still seen. So the same thing applies, even if it's not within your firm. When you go out to work for external clients, your culture should also reflect. Thank you.
Thank you, Obi. Ken, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It really just to respond to Obi's comment here, and we just have to be very careful that we're not inadvertently enlarging the scope of this work stream. This is about firm culture and governance, meaning to say culture and governance as it applies to accounting firms. So we have to be very careful that we're not suddenly enlarging the scope of all the elements that we're looking at beyond the boundaries of the firm. And a firm is very precisely defining the code. So that's what I would caution the board, that if the board wants to go in that direction, then we're going to have to open up all the other elements and actually consider whether In fact, all the other viewpoints might, in fact, apply beyond the boundaries of the firm, and that can be very dangerous in terms of the direction. So we just have to be very careful about unintended consequences if we were to go down that path.
Thank you, Ken. Nancy, please.
Yeah, so I'm gonna channel back to my work for very small firms. And I would agree that once you introduce staff, that you speak up cultures. But if you're a sole proprietor and you don't have staff, and thinking about designing the contract with the firm, you don't know how to have speak up culture with myself, right? And I say that, I mean, there is some notion of I should be free from bias, I should reconsider positions, you know, in a spirit of reality and objectivity. Things that are all important. That's not what speak up culture. Culture is having people feel that they have a safe space to disagree and raise comments. So I don't think that in this environment, example is not in absolute alignment with the overall objective viewpoints. I would also say that I think from the S&P population of firms, having this as an example is a really good demonstration of the proportionality and that we have been thoughtful about this. And so I think without having this example, that discussion is going to be top of mind for that group of stakeholders. That, well, you tell me this is proportional, but I don't see where it is. And so I think it's effective as a communication mechanism. We have been thoughtful about this. And then Ken, your point exactly about, I am very concerned about expansion of this scope beyond firm culture. We have an ability as firms to influence our firm culture. Going beyond that starts to use, I think, a lot of very different kinds of challenges that I think we have enough on our plate right now. We should focus on this. And then at some point we want to reconsider that we have it. And I did not have my microphone on, so it's my apologies.
At least here, we heard you well, loud and clear, Nancy. But let me just ask you, so you would, not only you support leaving the example or the reference here to the sole practitioner, but you also agree with this new reference to the with no staff?
I think the no staff makes it very, very clear. So yes, I support the change. I do not support removing the example in its entirety.
Yes, clear. Any other comments? So if not, with respect to this part of the paragraph 8, and given what we heard from Ken and Nancy, and I also agree that I think it's important to leave the example here. Even the with no staff, I myself would live well without it. But okay, if it's a suggestion that has been made and everyone agrees, we can of course leave it there. But I think that we need to be very careful with the message that these documents send out in terms, as you say, of small and medium practices. Because they are concerned, they have reasons to be concerned. And of course, we have been telling everywhere, and that's what's here, that not everything applies the same way. And some things may not even apply to the smaller ones. And we need to send this message in a very clear way so that we start mitigating some concerns and some fears around what may come out of this future something framework, whatever. Okay, Abby, if it's okay, we will leave this here as it is. Laura, back to you.
Thank you. So we will now share the viewpoints and we'll do the same. So walking through the changes.
And while that's showing up on the screen, thank you, Laura. I propose that for the first couple of sets of viewpoints, I'll pause after each one to see if there's any comments or questions. And then the second half of the viewpoints, there's fewer comments. So maybe I'll just run through them all in one go and then see if there's comments, if that's okay with the board. Okay, so with ethical leadership, starting with paragraph 3, as Laura mentioned, there was this board discussion around this language of prioritizing ethics above all other considerations. The project team and board advisors discussed this and suggested removing the language above all other considerations, including commercial considerations. We believe we're still getting the main message across here that ethics should be prioritized, should be top of mind, and the importance of an ethical mindset. In paragraph 4, there was a comment about the code not being the single source of truth in terms of ethical approach. So we added some language here to clarify, or other ethics standards, at least as demanding as the code. And I think there might have been a comment made around this after the updated papers were circulated. So if any board members would like to speak.
Please, thank you, John.
Thank you. I don't have a problem with the change in paragraph 4, but it's more a question of consistency because that's the only reference that we have of the code or other ethics standards, at least as demanding as the code. So either we use that all the way through or we don't. I'm quite happy either way, but I just would like it to be consistent.
Well, that poses a challenge, I think, but I see your point, Mark. I'm not saying that you're not right, but we need to decide, I think, what to do here.
Yeah,
please.
to my mind, this is just an editorial matter that the staff can handle. So we could have an early reference in the introduction to the viewpoints to say any and all references to the code here means also other ethics standards that are at least as demanding. So to me, it's just an editorial.
That can be done.
Does it really?
He's saying that's going to be done.
It's always meaning both in this document.
Sorry, we're referring to the code as a baseline, but recognizing that not all jurisdictions adopt the code as is. They use the code as a basis or they align to it, but the code is a baseline. So we want an anchor. In other words, we want a stable reference point as opposed to everybody's doing their own different things.
Well, I think that we may be opening here a Pandora box because we knew what it was with the ISO 5000 and the at least as demanding as the code. But okay, if you feel strongly about that, we need to that reference. I'm fine.
And just to be clear, it's not only IESBA in its coordination with IESBA in having the code as a baseline, but also in the statements of membership obligations at IFAC. So all member bodies of IFAC are in fact required to use the best endeavors to make sure that they are adopting, implementing standards at least as stringent as the code. So in other words, it is a baseline.
It will open the discussion again about what is as demanding as, and in this space, I think it's even more vague than it is for instance, in the case of the sustainability standards, because there we have regulations, we have regulators looking at it, and etc. Here, I think that there will be no way of assessing what can be as demanding as the code, and that it may open a lot of considerations. In this viewpoint, it's probably not that concerning. Others maybe. Rich, please.
I apologize. I may have not followed this, but we're talking about a viewpoints document that we're going to use to have further stakeholder interaction. And if those underlying documents that can reference say what they say, I'm not following why we need to have make a change here. It may be right. I'm just not following the argument for that, because the underlying documents govern, and we're just using this as a tool. And I don't want to muddy the waters when we go talk to people.
I'm sorry, Chana.
Yeah, so I agree with Rich. We need clarity that we are talking about the code for the purpose of this engagement. So it's better to go back to say it's a code.
Yeah. I also agree, nothing that, so can we agree to remove again the new reference to the other codes? Okay. Thank
We'll
you.
just change it back to the original
Yeah,
posted
yeah.
version, including keeping the announced.
Well, I have, it's more a comment, but I'm not asking to change the changes that you made, but I'm not, I must say, 100% comfortable with the change made under paragraph 3. I think that we are diluting the idea in a way which goes very, very, very below where we wanted to put the bar, because prioritizing ethics without any other reference, this can mean anything. So,
All decisions and actions.
sorry?
In
all,
decisions
okay,
and actions.
prioritizing ethics, but priority means putting something before something. And I was a little bit concerned about the discussion around this topic. And from the presentation that we had from Linda yesterday, I think that I got even more concerned, because the idea that some companies, it was the companies, not the firms, can consider commercial objectives and profit as an ethics as a thing. This leaves me very concerned, while I still think that when there is a conflict between commercial interest and an ethics issue, this cannot be, we cannot give up from ethics, because it's about complying, following the code or not following the code and the principles and etc. So I think that there were a lot of comments around this, so I'm not necessarily asking you to go back to include something more than what is here, but I'm not 100% comfortable with how we are leaving it under paragraph 3. China, please.
Yeah, so I think how we sort of got a bit comfortable with it is with the second sentence in paragraph 4, that they take an uncompromising stance in abiding by the code's principles. And I wonder whether that should come up. I mean, that's how we got comfortable about deleting the one about.
So what you're saying is that paragraph 3 must be read together with paragraph 4, otherwise it's not enough.
Yeah.
Well, okay, but.
I mean, I'm not okay if
Okay.
it comes back as well, but.
Okay. James?
I just wonder, and I think there's tension about above all others. However, 3 and 4 lose any reference now to commercial.
Yeah.
And one could read this as technical issues, et cetera, et cetera. So 3 could read prioritize ethics in all of their decisions and actions, including commercial considerations. That just might bridge
For me,
the
that
gap.
works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
So, let's propose with that, senior leadership prioritizing in all their actions, including commercial.
Including commercial.
That is.
I was actually going to suggest the same thing as James, because it troubled me as well that the commercial aspect went out. It's the reality. It's where the pressure point is, whether it's a firm or an enterprise. So I think being explicit about it is really important. So I'm very happy with the addition that's being proposed. Bring it back.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, James. Rania, please.
Thank you. So I'm very comfortable also with this suggestion. But I would like us also to consider promoting the idea in this document, and especially under senior leadership, that it's important that senior leadership recognizes ethics as a driver of long-term business value. I think that's an important notion to advance in an ethics code, and it shows that everything that's been said, and I just wanted to say that I really appreciate the changes that have been made to the document. I think the project team has done a great job in terms of really factoring in all the different considerations. But I think that one thing that is missing from the document is for us to show, to suggest, to push for senior leadership at accounting firms to see the alignment between ethics and their long-term financial viability. I mean, it shouldn't be a trade-off. They should be focused on the long term, and they have, in my mind, they should see that ethics drives long-term business value.
With that long term.
Exactly, provided the focus is on the long run rather than the short run.
Yeah, I see your point, Rania, but I wonder if this is not the objective, the overall objective or one of the objectives of the firm culture and governance framework. It's not ethical leadership, it's everything together.
Yeah, but we don't say it.
Among other
anywhere.
thing, drives
Yeah.
long-term viability,
But do we
sustainability.
say it? We don't say it anywhere in the
Maybe in the overarching.
I think that's the main.
Next one.
In chapter 5, we speak about business strategy. So we can eventually add a little time frame if we want, but you don't have, if it's short term, it's not strategy, it's tactic.
Yeah.
So for me, strategy is embedding a long-term, medium and long-term view, resilience, and so maybe it's more on there that we could add something if it needed. But for me, it's translated like that. Strategy for me is thinking for long.
Okay, thank you, Christelle. David, please.
Thank you, Chair. I would suggest that because these are viewpoints and they're meant to provoke conversation, that we use the conversation as the opportunity to figure out where it fits in the framework. Otherwise, it feels a little bit like we're over-engineering and we're getting a bit too prescriptive. So I would suggest we deal with it perhaps when we do the framework as opposed to trying to put everything into a viewpoint.
Okay, thank you. Ken, please. Sorry.
Thank you very much. No, absolutely, David. I think the point you've made is very important, that we do not lose that thought that we need to be able to articulate the value proposition of the framework. So maybe that ask the project team to really make a note of this so that when we come back to the framework, that is, I can envision maybe an introduction to the framework to articulate the reason, the rationale, the purpose, and the why of the framework. But my other point was more that this is also a communication point, and I'm looking to our communications team here, because as we go out and further engage with stakeholders, there will continue to be those questions. What is it that IESBA is trying to get at? Why do we need to talk more about ethics? What is the need for that framework? And I think being able to articulate that value proposition, to my mind, this is more a matter that sits outside, or that is kind of the let's say the contextual, even though we have the contextual piece, but it's part of the communications, right? It's so, I don't know if we have a snapshot that we will be, our team has been working on, really to convey in simple terms basically the purpose, the nature of the viewpoints, etc., and what the board is intending to achieve, the process, and so forth. I just wondered if our communications team can have a look at this and see whether we can make sure that we are addressing precisely Rania's point, that ethics is not something that is, is going to drive your considerations on this, let's say, engagement or this week, but truly goes to the longer term sustainability of the firm, and of course the reputation and the public trust and so forth.
Let me make a quick suggestion. Paragraph 2, just above, which is our last at the end. This responsibility permeates the ethical, cultural, and is fundamental to safeguarding the public trust. It's really safeguarding the public trust in the firm and the reputation value of the and we can say there, the why is there too, and could it be fundamental to safeguarding public trust in the firm and the reputation and long-term value of the firm? Is that, because it's the why do you care? Capture that, their rationale is in the firm. That'd be our harmful stuff.
These two public interest rationale are designed to be specific to this.
Each one of the viewpoints.
This viewpoint. So there might be repeated, but it's not the overall. So I don't feel that I'm agreeing that it's not only in ethical leadership that you will find the sustainable aspect, no? But,
No, no,
or
fair enough, fair enough.
we should have to repeat
Yeah,
it.
that was exactly my point, Christelle, that, James, it would fit well there, but it would leave an idea that only this viewpoint contributes to long-term value creation, which we want to assign to the global. So maybe somewhere else. No, but it was a good suggestion if it wasn't this idea that if we put it here, maybe we need to put it throughout all the viewpoints, because it's not only something that the ethical leadership will try to achieve, but everything together. Okay. Right.
Point. But I mean, in line with what we've done with the others, for example, under senior leadership, I think those were some of the comments that were raised, but then the project team said that under senior or ethical leadership, there's the notion of independent input and accountability, because it all falls within the idea of that ethical leadership. So I think, I mean, it's fine as long as it's in there. In my mind, I think that's one of the, whether you want to put it as overarching for the viewpoints or under leadership, but I think that this is one of the, I mean, we've been asked on so many different occasions to actually identify the behavioral change that we're trying to see. And the focus of this project really, of course, it's on accountability and ethical conduct and practices and culture across that cascades throughout the firm. But the focus is on the leadership, as you know, they set the tone for the firm. And so I think that this, in my mind, if you ask me what is the most important thing in terms of the change in behavior to reach that ethical culture that we're seeking, it's the conviction by the senior leadership that ethics is a driver of value. And I think it's a very important concept to put it under senior leadership, because they have to be convinced, and that's what will push them to
I think we
promote it.
we understood the point. Let's you need to make a decision. Let's listen to Obi. I'm sorry that we are really starting to be out of time. Obi, please. Obi Chukwu?
Okay. Thank you, Chair. Okay, so I just want to lend my voice to the importance of including the commercial consideration, so that it will be very clear, like Hugh said and David said, we need to make it explicit. Because if you look at most of the accounting scandal, the underlying point is commercial consideration was held above ethics. Like the Carillion scandal, we can mention a lot of them, is commercial considerations. So it's very important that we highlight that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Obi Chukwu. Tomoyo, please.
Thank you. I think Ranya's comment is really important, and the third paragraph may see like ethics will always be on the other side of commercial or something like that, but generally it should be in the right. It can come together. So I think and when there is a conflict or dilemma is explained in the fourth paragraph. So in the third paragraph, more saying that those both are aligned, a message that these are all aligned might be better.
Sorry, Tomoyo.
I really agree on Ranya's point.
So your opinion is that we should include here something in this viewpoint about long-term value?
Yes, in the third one.
Okay. I see the point, and again, I think it's fair to make this comment again, but we will need to be aware of the risk that this is understood as being value creation being something that it's achieved through ethical leadership, and that the other viewpoints have nothing to do with that, which I think it's a bit concerning, but let's see, let's listen to the board members. David, please.
Thank you, Chair. So while I agree value creation for any organization is absolutely part of its longevity, I'm worried about exactly the same thing. If we start to highlight it in one area, then it would suggest that others are less relevant. So I would go back to what I suggested earlier, which is let's leave it as part of the conversation and think about how it gets weaved into the framework. Because to me, it's an overarching thing. It's not one of the specific 8 pillars. And I think we'll miss a trick if we start suggesting things that could appear to be conflicting as well.
Thank you, David. Chana, please.
Yeah, I agree with David. And the other thing is in paragraph 2, we talk about the reputation of the firm. That implies the long-term view, because we have seen when you lose reputation, how much business you lose and the penalties and all of that. So I think it's implied in the reputation, and then it's better to be in the overall document and in the future.
Thank you, Chana. Luigi, please.
I tend to agree with what Chana and David said, because we may tend to be very precise, more detailed, and this will not be very difficult. The issue is that in doing so, probably we are losing the overall perspective. We can lose the overall perspective and the high level of these principles that really are those that we need to discuss with the stakeholder. If after this discussion something happened, well, this is not written in a way that cannot be modified. So we can go back and learn from what we gather from the stakeholder and change or give a direction. In this phase, I think it is a little bit premature. And probably this is really what we need in order to engage the stakeholders.
Thank you, Luigi. Sadia, please.
So I read back to the project proposal, and it's adequately covered there that this has long-term implications. I do like the point that there's a communication piece that goes with this here, because we'll be communicating about it and how we tie this back to the public interest. I think it's better if it's there rather than making tweaks on the document that might give more emphasis to leadership other than the others.
Thank you, Rania. Sorry, Sadia. Ken, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, I think you can leave the button on.
Sorry.
Thank you very much. I'll try to be very quick, but if I could ask the project team to just bring the contextual piece on the screen, and I might just have a suggestion, maybe a tweak that might help sort of bridge a bit of the two sides of the conversation here. Because the first paragraph of the contextual piece actually setting out the objectives of the Firm Culture and Governance Project, and that is the development of the FCG framework. And towards the end of the, I think it's the first sentence where we say, so it's about developing a principles-based FCG framework that promotes, supports, reinforces high standards of ethical behavior across all levels of the firm, across all of its services, thereby helping the firm to strengthen its reputation. And I would suggest adding "and value" as a highly ethical firm, and then we can continue with the rest. So it's a small tweak, but it just makes it a bit more explicit that, to Chana's point, the reputation itself inherently carries the notion of value, but we can just make it a bit more explicit to say reputation and value. I don't know if that helps you, Rania.
Sorry, I think that's great. You may want to add, I mean, I know that we're thinking on words, but long-term value, I just to like, in terms of like strategically, yeah. I think, but otherwise it's perfect, I think.
Okay, problem solved. Thank you very much to all of you for the contributions. Back to the viewpoints. Joanne?
Thank you so much for all those comments. Still on paragraph 4, try to move very quickly. There was a question about in paragraph 4 how you would measure an ethical mindset. And I think this was discussed and addressed during the meeting that we want to influence behavior and not everything will be measurable. So in line with that discussion, we're proposing no change here. And then there was also some discussion in paragraph 4 about that term uncompromising stance. And there was discussion around potentially removing that word. Some board members also agreed with that word uncompromising. So the PTM board advisors discussed this and felt that it was an important term to maintain, to have ethics be top of mind. So we are recommending no change here as well. Moving on to paragraph 6. There was another comment brought up here about whether understanding the value of independent input would be measurable. Again, in line with the previous discussion, recommending no change here. In paragraph 7, there was a comment around using the word outstanding. We changed the word outstanding and replaced it with champions, which was a term recommended during the board discussion. And it's now consistent with the language that we're using in the incentives and disincentives viewpoint as well.
Sorry, Joanne, Paul has a comment.
No, thank you, Chair. I think just going back up to 5, I'm just querying whether I'd suggest we take out putting in the word senior, because this is about saying that ethical value cuts across a leadership responsibility. It's not about just senior, it's a leadership fundamental. I agree with it being everywhere else, but is the spirit that leadership is tied to ethical value, I think gets watered down when you say it's only senior leadership that are accountable for that. That's my suggestion.
Thank you, Paul. I don't think I may exactly this issue on the I can move well without this.
We can leave us without adding the word senior, but I guess this piece essentially, as you read it, it is about the senior leadership. So that's just to make.
And that's the spirit. Everything's about senior,
Oh.
but leadership, ethical value is a fundamental of being a leader, not only senior leadership. So I would.
But it is the senior leadership's role to embed them in the overall business strategy. That's kind of how we were thinking it, I suppose.
No, we're talking about behavior, and I think Paul's reading it absolutely right.
There's going to be a lot of people that says this doesn't apply to me. There's somebody above. I like the idea. I thought that was a good one. And I just avoid, people will look and say, not me.
Okay.
Even the CEO might say that.
That's a good argument as well. So, okay, I think that we can take it. Okay, are you comfortable, project team? Okay, so let's remove it and move. I'm sorry, I'm trying to rush this a little bit, but we are really running out of time.
Those were all the changes for the ethical leadership viewpoints. So okay, we'll move on to oversight and governance. In paragraph 4, there was a board comment about whether there should be a separation of duties between the leadership and oversight functions. Thank you for that comment. The project team and board advisors discussed this and agreed that this is an ethics oversight function and not a supervisory board. So we're proposing no change here. And in the same paragraph, there is also a comment about including periodic reporting mechanisms here. And I think we had previously received that comment and therefore added data-driven in the second bullet of paragraph 3 to reference that and have something more measurable. So since we made that change in paragraph 3, we're recommending no change to paragraph 4. And then in paragraph 8, there was discussion around the use of the words consistent approach for network firms. The PTM board advisors looked at framing this in different ways and landed on something that we think might work. We changed consistent approach to consistent expectations to take the emphasis off of how firms would do this and focus more on the outcome, and to be more clear that this takes into account that within the network there are firms of different sizes, different work profiles, etc. Those are the comments for oversight and governance.
Okay, thank you, Joanne. Christelle, please.
Could you come back a little bit where you added data-driven, please? Yes. Do we agree that data is not data? It's information. I mean, it's data not in the sense of numbers, but because in ethics, it's not, in a number of cases, it's not going to be numbers, is it? So I don't know. It might be more complex. Maybe in a lot of cases you can transform actions into number of actions or number of whatever. But it's not only about that potentially. So reducing it to data, to the word as I understand, but maybe I understand it not well, is a little bit narrowing potentially. Okay.
Evidence? Oh, yeah, that's what I was thinking. David, please.
And I think this is an interesting one because when I think about data driven, to me, it just means it's objective. And it's something that forms the basis for an objective evaluation, whether that's qualitative extracts or whether that's quantitative. It's the idea is it's just not my personal view. So to me, data driven, I think, has an understanding contextually that it's an objective evaluation.
If there are any doubts, thank you, David. If there are any doubts about what this word can mean, I think we might consider changing it with evidence driven.
We'll define it.
I mean, we cannot, again, we are trying not to over-engineer this. If there is a comfort around the table that this is going to be well understood, okay. If not, we can change it to evidence. Ken, please.
Yeah, no, I just hesitate slightly on the word evidence because it suggests that in order to have oversight and governance, there has to be constant investigations across the range of. So that's a bit of a connotation that comes with evidence that in order to make an evaluation, where now the board of the directors of the firm now have to commission specific investigation, etc. So.
Thank you, Ken. Rich, please.
Really thought you needed a change, I would just delete the words data driven and let the bullet start with evaluation, because the introductory phrase says oversight and governance that provides ethical values facilitate. And then we get away from evidence, we get away from data.
Thank you, Rich.
Maybe I'm
Pragmatic
repeating
approach.
something, sorry.
Sadia, do you want to say something? No. Oh, sorry. You agree with that? Okay. I think it's a very pragmatic solution.
Yeah, I mean, if the board were open to it, we could pick up David's suggestion to simply add the word objective in front of the evaluation, because then that would, or implicitly bring the idea that there has to be a neutral consideration of the information.
Objective evaluation, that's what you, objective.
Objective evaluation.
Okay.
Well, I can live with that. I mean, these are viewpoints. So if it was already a framework, maybe I might have, because I think it's a little different to say objective or data driven, which means based on objective. Oh, okay, objective. Is everyone in agreement? Sadia, yes, I was looking at your face and I was feeling that there was
And my
something.
hesitance is because objectivity is a fundamental principle, so we should be objective throughout. And this is just my.
Well done.
Oh, you would prefer evaluation, simply evaluation. Okay. Okay, I think we can stay with that. Okay. Please.
Thank you so much for that discussion. Moving on to independent input. There's a comment after the board discussion to remove the words provision of and just have independent input, as a viewpoint is written in the firm and leadership perspective who seek independent input. So we removed that and also made the corresponding changes in the overarching piece to align to this. And some of these comments here are also reflected in the overarching piece, as Laura said. In paragraph 1, there's a comment about using objective instead of impartial. Thank you for this comment. The PT and board advisors actually had this discussion previously when drafting this viewpoint. The definition of independence in the code includes objectivity, and here we're trying to keep the word independent, but keep it away from objectivity. So we're recommending no change here. In paragraph 2, we replaced ethics and public interest matters with strategic and governance matters. to be consistent and aligned with what we have in paragraph 3. In paragraph 4, this is the former paragraph 8 that we moved up. There was board discussion around the importance of this point. So there were recommendations to bring this higher up in the set of viewpoints. So thank you for that. We elevated this point. There was a comment also about adding examples of criteria. It would be a little too granular as we're trying to avoid examples where we can. So we are recommending no change here. In the next paragraph, there was a suggestion to move this after paragraph 6. And the PTM Board of Advisors considered this and agreed that paragraph 6 and 7 need to go together because these 2 paragraphs are talking about the sources. And then we moved paragraph 5 up to paragraph 5 so that the paragraphs would flow better, starting with selecting the individual and organization, and then we would talk about the sources. So thank you for the comments about the flow. In paragraph 6, there was some discussion about whether to keep examples. Again, this was discussed in the board meeting about how these examples were included to demonstrate the options for proportionality. So the PTM Board Advisors discussed this and agreed to keep the examples here as they may be useful for SMPs to have a point of reference with these examples. Those are the comments for independent input. I'll pause here.
Thank you very much, Joanne. I just wonder, but if nobody feels like that, not a problem. If this includes, may sound a little bit prescriptive, and if we might have, this may include also because there may be other forms that we are not mentioning. So, okay. Other comments?
And then these set of viewpoints, if it's all right, I'll just go through all of the sets of viewpoints because we have a few comments. In accountability, paragraph 1, there was a comment about using the word shared responsibility to make it clearer that ethical conduct is a shared responsibility. And thank you for this comment. We received comments on this term shared responsibility previously that it wasn't clear, it wasn't necessary. So we had gotten rid of that term before to avoid confusion. So instead of adding shared responsibility here, we're proposing to add it to paragraph 2 to add share there to make that concept more clear. And then moving on to paragraph 3, there was a comment here about removing the word documenting. So we removed that word. That's the last of the changes for accountability. Moving on to incentives and disincentives. There was some discussion here around the concept and meaning of the word disincentives. Following the board discussion, the PTN Board Advisors considered it, looked over the viewpoints to see if the term was clear. In paragraph 6 of the accountability viewpoint previously, it says clearly defined disincentives, including specific sanctions, to indicate that disincentives are broader than just sanctions. And then in the incentives and disincentives viewpoints itself, paragraph 3 broadly defines disincentives when it says establish clear consequences for unethical behavior. And then again, in paragraphs 8 and 9, it further elaborates on disincentives, that it's about having that disincentivizing environment, such as communications around the consequences, and it's not limited to sanctions. So after these discussions, we're proposing no change here. And then paragraph 9, during our PTM Board Advisor discussion, we discussed adding the word consistent here. So timely, decisive, consistent, and fair manner. It wasn't clear that this concept was captured here before. And that's the last comment for incentives and disincentives. Moving on to open discussion and open discussion and challenge. There was some discussion with the board around whistleblowing mechanisms. I think there was consensus during the discussion to keep whistleblowing mechanisms here. PTM Board Advisors discussed it afterwards as well, agreed on keeping it. So we're proposing no change here. Moving on to education and training, there's just editorial changes here. So I will be moving on to transparency. In paragraph 2, there was a comment here around how this may create the perceptions that firms would need to report on a case-by-case basis, and also a perception that reporting on these cases would require internal and external reporting. There was a board suggestion to split it into 2 sentences. So we have one for internal, one for external, but it would have been a lot of repetition. So for the sake of readability, we shortened this paragraph. So the proposed changes, we removed in case of, to avoid that confusion, and reworded it to how a firm has responded to its ethical failures. We also added reporting as appropriate, And we also removed the reference to internally and externally, as we have the two sections below that reference internal and external transparency. So there's no need to have it here and be more wordy. Thank you for listening to me speak. That is the last of the comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. Great performance. Any remaining comments from board members? Okay, so I think we can agree on what is on this version of the documents, and I think we are coming to the end of this part of the session, right?
Yeah.
Christelle, please.
I'm sorry, I have kept reading and reading it again, and I couldn't get it through. It's on the ISQM1 paper. Comparison, which is, are we going through that? No. I have a question because there is a reference to 8 components of ISQM1, and I was confused if really there are 8 components, both in ISQM1 and in our viewpoints. Okay, but they are not referenced except 2 for an example, or are they referenced somewhere in the document, which I found could have been useful to have a look at, well, what do these 8 components of ISQM1 look like, and why do you take only 2 of them here? It's not as a control, but just having a broader view as a non-user of ISQM1, and because one of the main arguments that you may have during is, do we have to use the ISQM1 overall all business? Are you asking us to do another ISQM1 to enter all these new processes in? And I found it interesting that here we say, well, there are only 2 processes that are required, or two components that are required to be processed in ISQM1. And I found it interesting and lowering a little bit the stress potentially. So my suggestion is just as a note or something like that, to just list the 8 components of ISQM1 if possible.
Thank you, Christelle. In terms of references to ISQM1 across these 3 documents, is sitting in the contextual piece in terms of looking at the linkages between the IESBA viewpoints and ISQM1. The reason why we kept this quite brief and it's only a couple of or 2 paragraphs is because we want people to kind of, if they want to know more about how this how the viewpoints interact with ISQM1, then they actually go to that document, which will be an appendix to the briefing note.
So you're saying that I'm in the annex document.
Your point is very well. No, your point is very well understood. So we put a footnote in the link document.
Yes, my proposition.
Yeah, that we can do. Yeah, sorry, just getting that. That's fine. So. Thank you, Gabriela, and board members. So we'll take that as the board has accepted these 3 documents with the changes that we discussed earlier. So Gabriela, if that's okay with, I know that we're way over time, so I'll be very quick about the IESBA component.
Jeff, sorry, to make clear that this is not an approval, but it's a formal acceptance from the board with respect to these documents, so that from tomorrow on we can start using them as documents which have been agreed and accepted by this board. Okay. So please.
Thank you, Gabriela. Just very quickly on the IESBA FCG session on Wednesday that Ken and I presented. In terms of providing them updates on the 3 papers that we've just discussed, the IESBA didn't have any particular comments. They also recognize that this is an IESBA project, and so they didn't have any comments, but they, overall generally supportive of the project, of course. In terms of the ISQ1 linkages paper, which was agenda item 2D, that this board discussed on Tuesday, they were very supportive of the paper and they didn't have any comments in terms of changes. The only thing that they have suggested, and this is coming as a whole of IESB in that sense, is that in terms of conducting the comparisons of the remaining 6 FCG elements, that you would recall that's part of the appendix of agenda item 2D. At the moment in that paper, we have compared 2 elements, ethical leadership and incentives and disincentives. Their suggestion and recommendation is for us to keep working on the comparison rather than waiting until we've started developing the draft framework. Their reason is because they feel that if you do that, you would have better discussion and engagement with the firms. Also, there was a point that you may need to be ready for some of these questions of what about the other elements in terms of what's linkages and differences might be. And of course, the IASB team, who we have been working with quite closely, are very keen and ready to work with us. So the project team and the board of advisors discussed this on Tuesday as well. We felt that we agree with that with IASB proposal, and as long as it doesn't impact our outreach plan and doesn't impact in terms of the completion of the briefing notes, which we believe it won't. So we can keep working with our IASB colleagues, developing these other elements, but it wouldn't have no impact on in terms of how and when we do these outreaches. So we're happy with that, but we just want to bring it to the board's attention and just to see if there's any concern there. But other than that, unless Ken has any further updates, I'll pass it back to you, Gabriella.
No, just very simply to add, Jeff, to your explanations of what we heard from the IASB. First of all, the audit board was very supportive of the direction of travel on the FCG viewpoints and importantly the plan for outreach. We explained the various activities the board had discussed and agreed on in terms of the engagement with stakeholders in the first quarters of next year. Very importantly, it was strong encouragement for the board to complete the package of comparison or map, whatever term we want to use. In other words, to compare and contrast the viewpoints, the draft viewpoints versus SQM1, for the reasons Jeff has set out, but also to help firms themselves as they come to the table for the discussion, to help them better visualize where they stand relative to the viewpoint. So it's all for purposes really facilitating the discussion is essentially the argument that IASB was putting across to this board, and they would find it very helpful as a continuation of the coordination and collaboration between the two boards to complete the exercise. And as Jeff says, they will help support as much as possible in their staff team to enable us to complete that exercise.
Are there any comments? Okay. I'll just touch upon 2 things. First, this is a slight change to the plans. And I mean, Jeff said this will not impact our capacity to do all the other things. The reason why we had decided to do only 2 was twofold, because we did not have the resources now to do everything. Secondly, because again, we had the impression that we were comparing things which are not comparable. And so that these 2 examples would be enough to demonstrate that there is not an issue. Now, if there is a perception that it's necessary to do the rest of the job at this point in time, and we do not risk to sending a different message out from the one that we were sending before, which was the comparison is, well, it is what it is. Then, and if there are no concerns from the board, we can agree on that. Yohai.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just want to make a brief comment. Thank you for cross coordination with IASB, and I look forward to continue cross collaboration with the IASB to develop clear and specific guidances. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I think with this, Jeff, we have reached the end of this session on FCG and closed a lot of topics which were still open at the start of the week. So thank you so much to the project team and thank you so much to the staff for working on that. Robert, please.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity just to make a very brief comment at the end of this. Congratulations on the work done by the project team and under pressure, and to the board this morning for its attentiveness in finalising the documents. As you say, Gabrielle, it's not a formal approval, but it's, I think you said, agreed and acceptance, and that's the way to go, because it provides the basis now on which you can move into the outreach, and it's very good to see the board continuing to seek clarity on what the problem is to be solved, recognising that there is a public interest issue sitting behind this, a very strong one, and then pursuing the conversation through this mechanism of the viewpoints. But I think noting the conversation on Tuesday afternoon about the importance of just managing the perceptions and being clear about the steps that are being taken with these viewpoints and with the potentially resulting in a framework, but with no clarity yet on what the framework might be, and then the question, then managing the question of how and when to seek feedback on the options in relation to the code or otherwise. So that was an important discussion, but important discussion, which you brought, I think, to a good conclusion on Tuesday, Chair, and it's just that will doubtless continue to drive the project team's leadership in this area. So that's good, and we'll look forward to seeing the next steps. Also very encouraging to hear the IESB's response and their willingness to keep working on this. I think that's a good point, Chair, that the resourcing is important, but equally the collaboration is as well, and that will be, as Yohe just said, that's important, and that will be watched as well. So look forward to seeing the next step. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Robert, for the support and for your comments, which are well noted and will be taken forward for our future work and consideration. So we are half an hour late. Thank you very much to everyone for this discussion, which was a bit longer than we were expecting, and we have some time issues to manage here. Also because we have a few things to do during the break, like video recordings and things like that. We have the people here waiting, so we cannot delay this that much. So we probably need not only the 20 minutes that were initially planned, but probably half an hour. So I'm sorry, this will take us a little bit delay the schedule, but I think it's what's possible. And this conversation was necessary. So we will come back in 30 minutes.
Well, no, I'm not expecting, I mean, to be quite frank, I'm not expecting the conversation on the CIVs to be essentially taking all the time we've allocated here. The changes are essentially editorial refinements and such. So maybe I'd ask Linda and Jean to maybe take their position, and then we'll try to complete it as expeditiously as possible.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, thank you so much. Ken, I don't think this is going to take that long, so we'll just work through the changes, which are really more for clarity than substance. But let's just, as Jean is pulling the document up, let me just remind everybody. On Wednesday, we discussed the report. The board was supportive of the information in the report and the way forward to begin like the next phase of this work and look at developing NAM. After we met, or after the board discussion, we met with the board advisor, Luigi, Ken, Rich, to discuss some of the recommended changes and the way to deal with those. And so here we are today with the amended report, again, just mainly for clarification than substance. So we're going to just take you through the highlights of the changes and not really talk about any editorial changes. And also bear in mind, the executive summary is a summary of what's in the report. So you are going to see some similar themes because there may have been questions in the executive summary that required clarification So there was probably that same clarification that was needed in the report. So if it seems like deja vu, it probably is. So let's start with the executive summary, paragraph 3, page 3. On this particular matter, it was noted, and there were discussions about control and significant influence. And so we didn't really want to focus on that, because if it's determined that there is control, then it's a related entity. That's not the point here. The point is really determining independence for these external parties that don't fit within that traditional corporate scheme. So we have revised paragraph 3 just for clarification.
So Rajan, could you enlarge your screen maybe just a tad? Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So on the next page, we've got 7 and 8. Paragraph 7 actually really speaks more to, again, control and significant influence. So we've tried to put some, to amend it to just clarify what we're trying to do. We're not saying it's difficult to apply these concepts. It's not necessarily in practice because they've been applied for years and years and years, but we're saying with respect to connected parties, there may be some challenges that are created when applying these concepts of control and significance. So again, paragraph 7, some clarification changes. Paragraph 8, this one really speaks to the status quo. We had noted in here that maintaining the status quo was not an appropriate option. The reason for that is really because there were comments from respondents in which they said, we need clarification, we need guidance. And so we didn't want to give the impression that we're ignoring those very relevant comments by saying, we're not going to do anything. So again, changing the wording just for clarity. We're going to go, Jean, to page 5. And so this begins the body of the actual report. In paragraph 4, I think the way we had it worded really didn't necessarily reflect the board's view. So the focus has always been on independence, not specifically on the related entity definition. In the terms of reference, we spoke to the related entity definition because that was kind of the pathway to help auditors get to independence. But we're not really, there haven't been challenges or deficiencies with respect to the related entity definition. The issue is really the auditor independence with respect to connected parties. So we have revised that language for clarification. Next on page 7. This is just reworded for clarity. I think it kind of goes back to some earlier comments. So we've kind of revised that for clarity. Then we're going to jump to page 14. And I'll take, Jean will go to paragraph 43. So this one actually goes back to a comment on paragraph 3, which is about control and significant influence. I explained previously in the executive summary section that we're not focusing on the related entity definition. What we're doing is focusing on auditor independence. Therefore, we kind of wanted to take out that reference to control or significant influence and kind of amend the language for clarification in paragraph 43. So we have done that. Next, we go to paragraph 53 on page 17. And for that one, the respondents had said this. So, a lot of the information within this report comes from the responses to the consultation paper. So we don't want to necessarily reword the comments that respondents have provided. So therefore, we will leave that as is because it is a factual statement. John, let's go to the next page, 59. Again, this goes back to the executive summary where I said, when I talked about the status quo, and if there is a decision to do nothing, then essentially we are ignoring those respondents who said that guidance or clarification was needed. Next, we will go to page 19, 67, the table. We simply deleted, we had under option 1, kind of some examples of what we were thinking about with respect to NAM. We decided that, you know what, we don't need to put those in there. What we want to do is just keep it wide open. So we don't want to kind of prompt any specific mindset. So that's been taken out. Next, we are at page 20. And yep, thank you. Other matters raised. So this is the section about other matters raised. And I think there was really just kind of some confusion about whether or not the project team was still working on this. And we are not. So we have amended some of the paragraphs in that section to make it clear that the work that has been done by the project team on these other matters is complete. And Jean, yeah, that's still part of, yeah. So, okay, so now we are in the appendix. Yeah, did I miss one? No. Okay, now we're in the appendix section. And yes, or sorry, on Wednesday, there were comments about a table that is in the appendix section entitled Jurisdictions Represented by Stakeholders Engaged. And there were some questions about completeness, that possibly we needed to add jurisdictions to that list because we had engaged additional jurisdictions. But also there were some questions about, is the information accurate? I wanted to share with the board that this information was extracted from a report that was done back in April of 2023. This is not information that the project team itself has compiled. So we don't want to go in and start changing anything with respect to this information. So we decided that really it makes sense just to delete the whole table, take it out, because it's not adding any real value to the report. So that is all I have, right? Yes. So Gabrielle, I would turn it over to you for the next steps.
Thank you so much, Linda and Jean, for the turnaround of the documents based on the discussions we had last Wednesday. And I'm now asking the board if the board is comfortable with the changes made.
Yeah.
Okay. No issues, Linda.
Since we have a few minutes, can I just take this opportunity to say this will be my last board meeting? I want to thank everybody here for your support, your kindness, your knowledge sharing, everything. And I will not be a stranger. I am a boomerang, a bad penny, so don't be surprised if you see me again. But great group of people here, and I really, really appreciate everything you've done. So thank you so much. And thank you for this present that I can leave knowing that this report is complete. So thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Linda. Yes, just maybe before we close this topic, as the board discussed on Wednesday, the staff team will take back the recommendation. The board is supportive of the recommendation to pursue the path of developing non-authority material. So we will have some internal discussions. We will, of course, consult with the planning committee, and we will explore options for how best to take that forward, working with firms who have the expertise in this area, potentially jurisdictional senators, POs that might have particular experience or expertise in that area as well. So we will explore a number of options and come back to the board in due course, of course, in the context of prioritizing resourcing relative to the board's commitment. The final thing really I want to add is really what we do with the report. And there was a comment on Wednesday that this report reflects a lot of work that's been done by the project team over the course of the 2 years. And it would be useful to make that information available, broadly speaking, to our stakeholders. So my suggestion to the board would be to turn this report into a publication that we can then put out as a reference document for any stakeholders that might wish to go to the work that IESBA has done in this area in terms of its research and fact-finding and various stakeholder engagements, activities, etc., so that this is available on the public record, so we can have it designed in a suitable format that we can then put out there. But otherwise, it would be essentially the end of this phase of this work stream. And then we'll take forward the non-authoritative material route and see where we go.
Thank you very much, Ken. And Linda, of course, I want to leave here a word of gratitude to you for all the work that you have done, the dedication, this difficult project, which was very challenging for everyone, but for you especially. So thank you so much for all the collaboration, for the time with us, which is 2 years and a half, right? 2 years and a half. Time goes by very fast. And of course, my expectation is not that you come back in the form of a boomerang, but but in the form of someone working elsewhere, but still very connected to a lot of topics and a lot of objectives and purposes that we have here. So these shared objectives will stay, and I'm sure that we will cross here and somewhere, advancing the same purpose and the same objective. So all the best for the next chapter, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you very much.
Robert?
If I can just echo the chair's comments and to both the board and the project team, and I think to you, Linda, on behalf of the PIOB, thank you very much for the work that's been done in addressing this topic. As I said the other day, it goes right back to the deliberations on the new PI definition. I think this is a very good outcome, and I certainly agree that it's important to make the report public. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Robert. This morning we have 2 important steps made on FCG and on CIVs. I'm happy for that. And I'm also happy that after all the rush, we are going to break before schedule. So maybe I'll ask you for half an hour, okay, because we have a few things that we need to take care of. And then we'll go directly to the closing remarks and the executive session.
Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe I'd suggest if you ask the board, come back at 11:15. Just 33 minutes break. Yeah. Okay.
But before we close the session, there is an important moment that we have to go through, which is a farewell to our colleagues leaving the board after this board meeting. They were mentioned this last Monday by Ken. It's Rich Husken and Paul Muthara, board members, 2 technical advisors. I don't know whether Masahiro, he's there, and David, who is there. They are all leaving us. So we wanted to say a proper farewell and give them some certificates of their good presence and participation here at the board. So if we can move to that moment, I would probably start with Rich. Rich? So Rich, thank you very much for this amazing time with us, 6 years with the board, providing an incredibly robust, important, relevant contribution all the time in his various positions and hats as a board member, as a planning committee member, as the chair of the technology task force by the time they were task forces, advising from culture and governance, CIVs, private equity. So, well, and I'm only speaking about what I saw after I joined because Rich was already there and doing a lot of things. So Rich, thank you so much for everything. Here's your,
Make a picture.
yeah, and a very, very, very humble and small gift.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul, your turn. So Paul, thank you so much for these 3 years with us. It was a big pleasure, and it was, I think, a privilege to this board to have someone like you with different ideas coming from different spaces, with a very, very agile mindset, and not being afraid of disagreeing when you had to disagree, coming up with fresh ideas, right? Supporting the project of doing something on sustainability, even if you're not a member. You were one of the biggest supporters of the IESBA to move forward with this project, besides your collaboration on technology working group. So thank you. And outreach, I must mention it, because Paul has been doing an incredible job in helping us in Africa with a lot of outreach initiatives. We will miss you.
Thank you so much.
But you'll stay with us, and I'm sure that we will go.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
A small- Thank you, Paul. All the best. And now we have David Clark. David, I'm sorry you have to stand. David, thank you so much. We all know how much David has contributed to this board. I don't know how many years, but it was a lot. 9 years. It's part of a life, an important part. David, sorry?
A sentence.
So David has been with us for a long time, but it's not only the time that matters, it's the impressive contribution that David made, not only as Rich's technical advisor, but much beyond that role that he performed very well. Being a critical element of some projects like Sustainability Task Force and chairing the Technology Working Group, as I mentioned yesterday, which he accepted to do in very difficult and unexpected circumstances.
Yeah.
But besides that, I need to mention that David was always someone who managed to build bridges between different perspectives, namely bringing the experience and the knowledge from the firms, someone coming from the firms, but always with an unwavering commitment to ethics. And this needs to be mentioned because this is the kind of people and perspective and approach that we really need. So, and supporting myself in many circumstances where I call David to try to understand a few things, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, David. You will stay with us, of course, and we hope to see you very soon. I was suggesting that we might do some kind of a crowdfunding. Yourself and Masahiro.
I might be the boomerang, yeah. Thank you very much. That's very kind of you. Thank you. Oh, yeah. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Just remember, without fun, there is nothing.
You know that I agree. Masahiro? And what can I say? I think it's better not to say anything, but I'll say something. Masahiro has been with us, I don't know.
7 years.
7 years, also an important number of years, providing an incredible contribution to this board, advising the different board members over time, and even being technical advisor to different board members at the same time. This is just part of what Masahiro has represented to this board. Masahiro is also part of the Sustainability Task Force and providing an incredible support from technically, but also, like David, trying to bridge some different perspectives and trying to come up with some solutions, which we very much appreciate. Apart from that, Masahiro has been critical in advancing a lot of and organizing and supporting a lot of important outreach initiatives in Japan that I have myself had the opportunity to benefit from. It's, well, the fact that I have been to Japan a significant number of times just it's due to Masahiro and his incredible support and etc. Masahiro has been also critical in Japan in spreading the IESBA message, helping with a lot of training, education, even sometimes I respect translations, involvement and etc. So he's really has been an ambassador of the IESBA in many ways, but specifically in Japan. And yes, like David, I think that Masahiro agrees that without fun, there is nothing. So, Masahiro, thank you very much.
Thank you
You'll
very
stay with us, and you'll, if we do a fun. Thank you, Masahiro. Thank you. Thank you.
I think in addition to all the kudos to Masahiro, I would also maybe suggest that we award Masahiro the title of IESBA engineer. Because
Why?
Masahiro has always come up with all these incredible diagrams and spreadsheets, you know, to really work through a particular technical issue. And he's always shown us a light of day. So thank you very much, Masahiro. It's always been very, very helpful.
Happy to work with him.
Okay, so thank you very much, and it was good that this was not the last part of the meeting because we still have them with us. So I'll spend just a few minutes after this to update the board on some changes and adjustments to the working groups and board advisors to the different projects. With people leaving, people joining, and a few changes happening, and we're moving to a different stage of some of the projects, we needed to make some adjustments. So regarding the joint strategy and joint strategy survey with IESBA, there are no changes. Christelle and Chana have been our representatives there, and they will continue. On FCG, from Culture and Governance, Rich is leaving, so we needed to make decisions here. And this decision was, of course, Chana will continue as vice chair, leading the lead advisor, and etc. But we will have John Walters, who was invited and accepted kindly to be part of this group. We needed someone from the firms, and well, since he's joining and was the only one who did not have anything on his pocket, so it was a good idea, and he seemed very enthusiastic about it. And we will also bring Hector as representing the others. I'm sorry, Hector, but no, but we have a standard setter. We have someone from the firms, and we have someone who has the vision of the users, corporate governance specialist with a lot of background in that area and knowledge, and the investors. So I think that this group is being, well, now it's 3 people, 3 board advisors. We are still trying to understand how we move with this staff-driven model, how the board is engaged in the work. So as we go, we are trying to understand how to do it better. There are no rules if it should be 1 or 2 or 3. It depends on the projects. It depends on availability. It depends on the board members' capacity to participate. Luigi will kindly continue, I hope, I'm sure, with the CIVs. There will be no one other, for now, no other board advisors, so no changes. With respect to the PIRs, NOCLA and the post-implementation review, some changes. So Hector, who was partnering with Sadia there, is moving to FCG, which is going to mean a lot of work. So he will no longer be board advisor to this project, but we will have Sunam, who has kindly accepted to take this role, and also Rania, who will join Sadia and Sunam. So again, we'll have 3 board advisors here. It's 2 projects. We decided to do it together, but they are actually 2 projects, even if they go in tandem. But thank you very much for your availability to join this group. Now, on sustainability part 2, as I call it, because the name is so long that Mark and Nancy will continue as being the board advisors to this project. By the way, we did not mention any of these projects, NOCLA, the restructured code, PIRs, and sustainability in this meeting, but of course there is work being done. The fact that it was not on the agenda does not mean that it has been paused. There is work, but it was not yet the time to bring some results of this work and some questions to the board. So it's moving, but you'll see something about it a little bit later. David Ray will continue being the board advisor to the CFO's project. No additions, no changes, everything remains. Thank you, David. For the adoption and implementation, we have a small change. Sadia is already on the PIRs and she has responsibilities on the SMP relationships and etc. So very, very busy member of the planning committee. And Sadia is also concerned about the fact that she's rotating off by the end of next year. So we need to start making some transitions. And Obichukwu, who has been doing a great job in terms of outreach in Nigeria, an outstanding job, has kindly accepted to replace Sadia. So we will keep on having one member of each continent on the adoption and implementation group, but for Africa, instead of Sadia, we will have Obichukwu. Obichukwu, thank you very much for accepting to be part of this group, and Amajit for keeping on chairing it, advising, chairing. Imak, Luigi will also continue being the chair of this group. Thank you. And on the technology working group, there are some changes because David Clark, who has kindly chaired and very well chaired this group for 3 years, is leaving. So I have invited, and she has accepted Tomoyo to chair the technology working group. And I'm very, very happy that you have accepted, Tomoyo. It's a very important role. As we spoke, technology is going to be a very important topic on our agenda. So good luck, and we will be here to support you. We, and mostly the members of the group, which will be David Clark, who was already there. David Ray. Sorry, David Ray. It's Friday. Yeah, it's Friday. David Ray. Sorry, who was already there. Nancy Miller, who has kindly accepted to be also a member of this working group. Bruno, where is Bruno? Bruno, technical advisor to Christelle, and who has some experience, I think, some substantive experience in these areas, who has also kindly accepted to be part of it. And Tomoyo's technical advisor, Asuchi, yeah? I don't know where Asuchi, yeah, he's there. So this is the new composition of the technology working group. So I think that's all in terms of board members coming and going. Of course, there will be some adjustments in terms of staff support very soon, but we still need to work a little bit on it with these changes, with some decisions that we made here about priorities and work that needs to be done, but also some people leaving the staff. It's going to be necessary to readjust staff support to the working groups. As with respect to private equity, we will take back the recommendations or the approach of this board that that this should be soon should be taking its own life, and we'll see how this is going to be possible to do, with whom, in terms of board members, in terms of staff members, but we will come back as soon as we have something structured to share. And I think that's it. Yes, we have another thing. We are creating, this was not mentioned here, but we are creating a joint working group, with the IESBA, which is a users group, investors group, if you want. Both boards will have a member representing the board in this group, and in this case, Hector has kindly accepted to do it with some, some caveats. Of course, we don't know what this will mean in terms of work, the amount of work that this will bring. It's still uncertain because it's still being discussed in terms of reference and etc. But for the time being, or for now, Hector has kindly accepted to add this to the farm culture and governance responsibility, since he's very close to these users. And that's it. So any question with respect to this? I think that with this, all board members have now something, a responsibility in, either as board advisors or members of working groups or chairs of working groups, which I think is good. But if there is any question or requests, happy to take it. Well, if not, let's move. Ken, please.
Yes, unless there's anything else, Chair,
No,
that you
just
would like to.
closing remarks.
Right. So I believe our communications team has put together a couple of videos for our departing board members. And I just want to check, Dana, if we have those ready. But before we play out the videos, I just wondered if Rich and Paul, if you have any words you would like to share with the board as your parting shot.
I am never at a loss for words, some would say, but maybe a little bit to that. I'd like to start by saying thank you to the staff, from Gabrielle and Ken down, for the tremendous work you do every way and the hard work, because I've gotten to see a lot over 6 years, and I'm sure I haven't even come close to seeing it all. But the effort you put in support of the board and its mission is fantastic. I'd also like to thank the board members here, the TAs, the observers, for all you do, and it's been a privilege and a pleasure to work with you as we try to advance the public interest perspective. I wish all of you the very best in your future endeavors, and I look forward to carefully watching how the board progresses. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think for me, it's just add my voice and do great thanks. It's been a true pleasure. It's been too brief, I must say, but given the fantastic transition we're going through as a board, I think it's been so compelling to be able to support the necessary work. And I will certainly find ways to keep supporting this fantastic vision and commitment in whatever roles I go into. So just deep thanks to all of you for the support, the guidance, the direction you've given as I've worked with you, and very much looking forward to seeing what will evolve as you go forward. Thank you.
So just before the video, and I know, Dana, you already put up the video, right? But maybe just if I may turn to Robert. Robert, do you have any additional final observations from a PIB perspective over the course of the meeting?
No, not really. Thank you, Ken, for the opportunity. I think I've said my pieces in relation to the particular items, but just as an overall comment, I go away from this meeting with a sense of very active participation by all board members in the deliberations over this week. And including from the two members who have not been able to be here in person, and Amajit and Obichiko, thank you very much for your contributions. And I'm sorry I haven't been able to meet you in person, but and hope you'll be able to find the opportunity to be in person at future meetings. And just to mention as well that this is my final observation as well, because I'm rotating off the POB at the end of this month. And if I can just say that it's been a great privilege to be able to work with this board, particularly in my observation work over the years that I've been a POB member, and just to say as well how supportive the POB is of the work of this board. And I can just leave you with that reassurance, and wish you all the best in your continued efforts in the very challenging and but highly important topics that you are advancing. So thank you very much. I said a few goodbyes last night to people as well, but it's been great to have the opportunity to come to New York and see everyone again before I finish. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Robert. We also think it was important that you made it in person, not only because it's your last meeting, but also because it works differently. And I think that I hope that it may have helped you understand where we are and where we are coming from. But besides the pleasure of having you with us, so thank you very much for that. And I'm sure that just like I said, Rich and Paul and etc. This is not going to be the last time. I'm sure that we are going to be speaking and engaging and receiving good advice. Thank you. Thank you to all of you. And now it's time to close the session. But before I do, just 2 or 3 words. First, reflecting on this week, I'm not going to say much because we had a lot of topics on the agenda. I think very successfully walked through with some important decisions, namely on agreement on the FCG viewpoints, the approval of the CIV's report. It's an important step because we were aiming at getting somewhere with this work at some point, and now we are moving to something very concrete. The partnership, the framework for the partnership under the ANI work, which is going to be, I hope, significant help for this board and to improve our ability of working through networks and having a different outreach. Also the SMART framework, which we adopted or accepted or agreed upon. And as we will start putting it in place and working with it, I think that the improvements will be very quickly seen. But above all, I think that it was the climate, the environment here, the dialogue, the fact that everyone this time spoke, engaged, was active, present, attentive, etc. I think it was one of the best meetings from that perspective. I don't remember a meeting where, in this way, all the board members have engaged and felt, I think, completely free to speak, to agree, disagree, but we always manage to get to some good points without much tension or difficulties. I have the impression that this room helps, and I'm speaking seriously sometimes. The fact that we are closer, that we see each other, that we are in such a nice space. And by the way, I take the opportunity to thank again AICPA for this, the privilege of being able to meet here. It's not only because we could not meet at the offices, but it's really a privilege to meet in such a nice space with such a nice view, with so good conditions. So I want to leave a big thank you to AICPA. And again, I'm sure that this environment also helps, but what is most important is what each board member and all of us together does and do to make these meetings successful. And this one, I think it was a good way, a very successful way of closing 2025 with important decisions, important steps made, agreements around the table. So thank you very much for that. And finally, I want to thank the staff for the amazing job they did, as always, but in very challenging conditions, because meeting here at AICPA is even more challenging for the staff. They have to take care of a lot of things which are granted or taken as granted when we are at the office. Specifically and especially Stu, who is not with us today because he has some personal issues, and Diana, who is sitting there, but also the technical staff who made all this possible. All these documents, all these discussions, all this progress, all these steps have been made because the staff has been working intensively to make this possible. So thank you to everyone. Thank you to the staff for providing us with the grounds and the basis for a very good board meeting. And I take the opportunity to wish everyone a great holiday season and a great 2026, where we will be moving with everything that we decided this week. So thank you very much. See you soon.
Thank you.
And we are now closing the public
Yes,
session.
and I think maybe I'll ask Diana if she can play the videos. And just to be clear, Astu is just coming down with a virus, so nothing more than that. You will see her for sure next March.
Okay, the public session is closed. And we will now move to our executive session.